Yes, hello, I am Kojo. This is the 3inMidfield podcast, and this is something new for you guys, for you listeners. This is a tactical, more of an analytical breakdown of individual games from the Premier League, could be the Champions League, could be other competitions. But today we start with Liverpool versus Chelsea, which was played on the 21st of January 2023. It was draw 0-0. Two great sides, but currently in a bit of a predicament. We're going to analyze that, and we've got a special guest, of course, of voice you'll recognize. Let's get the show started. Yes, hello and welcome to the 3inMidfield podcast. As I said, I am Kojo and I am joined by an honorary member of our show. At this point, is even just family from the podcast world, you know what I'm saying? Steve, welcome back, man. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me back. Been a while. It's been a long time in terms of football between the last time we spoke and now, where things are at for my team, which I'm sure we'll get into and we'll break it down and have a look at it. So I was looking forward to coming on, but the subject matter isn't really easy to speak about in terms of where we are. So I'm sure between us, mate, we'll have a look at it, try and understand it, make some sense of it, and then hope that the club does exactly the same before the next game, mate. I can't watch too many more games like that.
Well, for those of you who know Steve, he is a very, very, very passionate Liverpool supporter, has been for many years, and he is also very honest about his club through success, through failure, whatever you deem to be success and failure. But Liverpool in the last couple of years have been very successful, Premier League winners, Champions League winners, multiple Champions League finals, competing with one of the strongest sides in Premier League history, that is the current Man City side, managed by Pep Guardiola, taking them to the limit loads of times, but also have dominated in the year that they won the Premier League. For anyone that remembers, that was during the COVID year, but there's no asterisk on that one for me. You win the league, you deserve to win it, and that's it. But this season has been very different. Liverpool are not the Liverpool that we've been used to under Jurgen Klopp in the last 4 or 5 years. And we will talk about them in a lot more depth. We'll focus on this game first. Liverpool, Chelsea, 0-0. Now, we'll talk about the lineup first. I will bring that up. I know you will probably remember the lineup. Maybe it's a thing where your manager is Jurgen Klopp is experimenting. But when you saw the lineup yesterday, what were your thoughts? Were you concerned? Were you a bit worried as to who he's picked? Because I think the notable person missing from the lineup was Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back.
Trent trained once last week with a muscular problem, so it was not a surprise. We didn't know until the day, and they kept that quiet. I was only seen once training during the week, same for Darwin Núñez, so it was obvious those guys were going to play some part in the game, not all of it. In terms of the team in general, we beat Wolves in the FA Cup replay midweek using that midfield you see there, Naby Keita, Stefan Bajcetic and Thiago Alcantara. He had alluded to at the end of the game that those people who tried and worked hard for the team were in the box seat for the weekend game, being the Chelsea fixture. He was true to his word. Not surprised, to be honest with you, because we'll get into this a little bit more. The one thing that Liverpool have lacked per se throughout the season is energy in that midfield. We've been easy to play against. This is probably, in terms of an 18-year-old, a guy that can control the game in Thiago. And a guy that's very interesting, if you break him down and have a look at his stats. Naby Keita presses as well as anyone ever has for Liverpool. He just isn't available often enough, and he's a bit of a misnomer in terms of massive transfer fee, lots and lots of expectation about what he should be. We just can't get a tune out of him. And basically, for a Liverpool fan, the underlying thing with Naby Keita is frustration, because we know there's a player in there, but regretfully, we're not going to see that materialise in a Liverpool shirt, because it's pretty much a poorly kept secret that there's a very strong chance he exits the club on a free in summer.
Well, just quickly on Naby Keita, because obviously we know there is a talented footballer there. That's why you signed him. He had a great time in Germany for RB Leipzig. And when he was signed, there was a lot of excitement, I think, for Liverpool fans and for neutrals, people that love the game, putting all rivalry aside. Again, another talented player coming to the Premier League, what exciting to see. Be it injuries or sometimes just not the best performances, is it one of those ones where you think time is just up on his Liverpool career, or do you think there's still a player in there that can be brought out by Jurgen Klopp?
There's a small chance we may work a deal with him to stay, because we kind of invested a lot of money in this guy. He's on like 140 grand a week. It's 57 million pound to buy. It's an 80+ million pound transfer, all told. That right now looks like a flop, if we're going to be honest with you. Number of reasons. One is the navigator that played in the Bundesliga is not something you can bring drop straight into the Premier League and plug and play. The Premier League offers lots of different challenges and lots of different physical attributes. The game itself is considerably quicker, and I think it's not being disrespectful to the Bundesliga. The standard of opposition is of a notable higher standard. So, with Naby, the situation for me comes down to, yes, there's been injury problems. Some defy belief. There's also a lack of trust, and that lack of trust was never more sort of evident in the quarterfinal of the Champions League against Real Madrid, playing in the B team stadium because the Bernabeu was out of commission. He was taken off before half time because he just wasn't reading the game plan. And ultimately, if you ask any Liverpool fan who studies the games with any degree of intensity, his performance in the first half cost us the tie. We were 2-0 down because we were carrying a passenger in midfield that really wasn't performing to the game plan. Liverpool's system is so rigid; everybody has to execute it to the nth degree. One person that doesn't do it can cause the whole thing to fall down. You've heard me talk to you many, many times, Kojo, about Liverpool's system being ridiculously efficient, but also very, very vulnerable. And it's very vulnerable when one man doesn't do his job. And in that particular game, that personifies the issue we have with Naby Keita in terms of you can't always trust him to deliver what the team requires. It's very different. And I'll go back 18 months, 2 years. If you put the team up 2 years ago, you'd see Henderson, Fabinho and Gini Wijnaldum, which would be a very flat midfield three with a 6 and 2 ball recyclers either side. That was the ruthlessly efficient side of Liverpool's system. They stopped you, they suffocated you, they gave you no space to play, and then they took the ball off you, and then the front three were away. Nowadays, depending on who's playing in midfield, we have a lack of legs, we have a lack of athleticism, we have a lack of rigidity in terms of the system, and we certainly don't have 2 world-class ball recyclers left and right of the 6. Yeah. So we've struggled in that regard. I am of the opinion, and I know a lot of Liverpool fans share this opinion, that you can't play that system with the current squad we've got.
Yeah, well, this is where I wanted to ask the question of challenging your opponents, because obviously Chelsea are not in great form either. I believe Chelsea are, well, going into this game, they were placed below you in the league. They were 10th, or you were 9th. Just quickly on their lineup. Having saw their lineup, so I mean, as the opposition, you would have to look at their team, their midfield, their defense, and see if there's anyone you can exploit. Any sides you would prefer to attack down, because maybe that's the perceived weaker side of their team. But looking at their lineup, especially with a new partnership at the back of Benoit Badiashile and Thiago Silva, new to each other, did you look at that as a potential weakness, or was there maybe like a side where you thought maybe if we look down their left side, we could maybe attack Corella, or maybe just get past Conor Gallagher? What was your thinking before the game?
So the first thing you look at when you look at that side is, where have they spent £500 million? Because you look at that squad, it's not a well-beaten squad, is it? And it really should be for £500 million, is what the point I'm trying to make. That whole back four for me would struggle against a very quick transition, some patience and directness. And this is why I wanted Darwin Núñez to start the game, because I wanted Darwin Núñez to play on the Thiago Silva and Trevor Chalobah partnership, because Trevor Chalobah's okay, but he's not a world-class defender. Thiago Silva is a world-class defender in terms of what goes on inside of his head, the IQ of the game, but physically he might struggle against a very direct opponent because he's 37. We need to bear that in mind. He might even be older than that now. And he will struggle against directness. Badiashile is an unknown quantity, and Marc Cucurella, for me, is a better attacking left back than he is as defensive one. So from a Liverpool perspective, I wanted to see Liverpool test this back four. I also took a look at the midfield and thought, they're suffering exactly the same thing that we're suffering this season, and that's why we're 9th and 10th respectively, or 9th and 11th, I think it is now. I think Brentford or somebody split us up now. They don't have pace. They don't have power. They don't have athleticism. If you sat and watched the game, you wouldn't notice Jorginho was playing. He was not a feature in the game. He's not a factor in the game. You couldn't single him out and say, Jorginho had a good game. But there were times when I had to remind myself he was even playing, because he just went about a quiet but effective job in trying to tidy up the midfield. I didn't think this game would turn into a battle of the midfield, because I don't think either team right now trusts their midfield. So I would imagine that both teams would have gone deeper with their back line and played a quicker transition, bypassing the midfield lots and lots of times, which Chelsea did, by the way, hitting long diagonals, trying to get runners in behind. But let's be honest about it. Hakim Ziyech is a technical footballer rather than a speed merchant. Kai Havertz is a technical footballer rather than a speed merchant. Conor Gallagher played quite deep. He didn't play specifically where you've got him there, because as the game wore on, they pulled him in deeper to try and shore up that midfield. And Mason Mount is a wonderful footballer, and we're linked with him, obviously, because his contract's coming to an end. But this is a guy, for me, that's gone really stale. It's not the Mason Mount that everybody would look at and go, this is a game changer. Cast your mind back to the League Cup final against Liverpool. Mason Mount could have won that by himself, but he didn't. He didn't take his chances. This is a guy that potentially needs a massive change in tactics or a change in club to get the best out of him. I think he's gone stale. So I came into this game looking at Chelsea thinking, I can see why they're 10th. But if you were sitting here talking to a Chelsea fan, they would say, I can see Liverpool were 9th. So it's kind of two teams in poor form at the moment. But from a Liverpool perspective, I looked at this team and that doesn't look like a £500 million team to me. And I could see a number of areas where we might be able to benefit. I thought Andy Robertson would find playing against Hakim Ziyech quite easy and be able to impress himself going forward. And that's pretty much what happened. Andy Robertson at times was Liverpool's driving force, because we went with a 37-year-old right back whose first job was to shore up the defence and make sure we were solid, resilient, didn't give away goals. Yeah. So I think we talk, depending on who you're talking to, I could see an opportunity for us to get at Chelsea. And I'm sure Chelsea fans would tell you a very similar story, but on the other foot, they thought they could get at Liverpool.
Yeah, well, you spoke about the fullbacks, and that's actually what I wanted to go to next, because looking at how the teams approached the game, it looked like, anytime naturally when Andrew Robertson went forward, they will try and get the ball to Ziyech as quickly as possible. But a lot of their attacks went down your right side, and actually a lot of your attacks went down their left side. So it was looked at as Milner and I'd say Cucurella would be the weakest options, especially considering Mason Mount is not the best going backwards to help. And I think Liverpool are trying to get, well, you can tell me you know better than me anyway. Salah is a goal getter. He always gets goals, but he started out the season a lot more wider than we've been used to during the season. But I think he's trying to get a lot more into the inside forward spaces to get his goals back up, because he's Liverpool's main goal getter. Was Milner? I don't think it was bad, so I don't want to call him the weak link. But was he the weak link that they had to target? Is he the player that had to target, rather, not the weakest link?
On paper, yes. How it come to pass tactically, probably not, because he was more likely to stay at home than Trent. So that big area of space that teams hit diagonal balls into and try and get give and goes and third man running into that space wasn't really an option for Chelsea, because Milner was more inclined to stay at home. He didn't overlap. He didn't bomb on. He didn't become particularly inverted like Trent's been trying to do to become a playmaker. He was in there to be more of an orthodox right back, if you like, and play more of a holding right back position rather than someone who was bombing on, which is why I alluded to the fact that we tried to get Andy Robbo to work down that side to pull Chelsea across, switch across, and have a go at the gap between Cucurella and Badiashile. So basically hoping that Mo Salah would find himself in the half space. Well, it didn't work out that way. So on that point, it's a really interesting point you make. Mo Salah has gone out wider this season, and when Liverpool are not playing particularly well, that becomes a feature of his game. He drifts out wider and wider and wider till he's got the old cliched saying he's got whitewash on his football boots.
Yeah.
Add to that Darwin Núñez very often picks on a centre-back who he wants to isolate early doors, who he knows he can beat. He knows he's got the legs on him. He knows he can get by him. And very often he will play in that half space. So let me give you, for instance, against Everton, he played directly up against Connor Cody. And Connor Cody was the left-sided centre-back for Everton. So he targeted him and wanted to play against him. So he's running into the space where in years gone by, Mo Salah would make his inverted run into to arrive into the spaces to create his goals. So for that reason, we didn't want two players in the same area, same position on the pitch. So Darwin Núñez, understanding his role in the Liverpool team, that we can't play around one man, isolating one defender. That makes you very one-dimensional. It makes it difficult to find opportunities elsewhere. When everybody's fit, and the front three for me will be Salah on the right, it'll be Núñez through the centre and Diaz down the left. Diaz and Núñez will dovetail quite a bit because they're both comfortable playing on the left. Diaz likes to come inside. Núñez likes to go to the left-hand side. And Salah will be able to drift across into the pockets of space that's left by the number 9 that's working in tandem with the left winger. Because of injuries, because of availability, we've not been able to see that. So Mo Salah's not having a great season. He's still got very good GA for the season, but he's not having a great season. And he's not scoring high-profile goals like he has in recent years.
Yeah.
I've said many, many times when I've spoken to you and Cahill, irrespective of whether it's Liverpool, Manchester United, whoever, you have to give creative footballers the ball in an area they can use it, an area where they can hurt their opponents. And we're not doing that with Mo Salah. The service is pretty poor at the moment. So in terms of that, our midfield's an issue that quite rightly has been spoken about. Outside of that, our front three is an issue also in terms of the movement, in terms of the press. We'll get into that when we look at the stats and what have you. But the front six for Liverpool has been a problem all season for me.
Well, we'll get into that as well because now we got the passes below on the screen. So for those of you that can't see, Liverpool completed. I think it's completed. I don't know if it's attempted or completed. My stats may be wrong, so we're just going to work with it for now anyway. 427 short passes to Chelsea's 505. Obviously, we know Graham Potter's style of football is a lot more position based, so Chelsea's numbers on that side will go up. But the long passes, I don't like using the term long balls because I feel like we've got players that know what they do when they play the long passes. Long balls seems more like a get up there and see what happens kind of thing. 62 Liverpool to Chelsea's 42. Again, Steve, you'll know better than me for Liverpool. The long passes, 62 isn't for me a huge number. Considering you play 90 minutes, you know, you can switch the ball, you can play long passes over the defense. But is that something new to Liverpool, or is it something that's just not working? Because in this game, I can remember about 2 or 3 that did work, namely one that was the young midfielder, Bajetic. Is that how you say his name?
Bajetic, yeah.
Yeah, Bajetic. Played the ball through to over the top to Mo Salah, who got the ball on the right side and did attack before he stopped Gakpo, who just hit it over the bar. Is that something that's been working overall? I mean, I know results based, yes, it's not working, but overall, in terms of over time, the long passes, the approach, finding Salah's, maybe your Mane's beforehand, Firmino's, is that something that works for Liverpool that's just not working now?
It's always something we've been able to do. It's always been an option of ours. And you cast your mind back to the Bayern Munich away game when Van Dijk hit Mane with a 60-yard and he turned Neuer on the defence inside out and scored. So that's always been an option for Liverpool. What we're finding this season, and I'll go back to the press issue, because we're pressing singularly. Do you remember when Liverpool fans laughed at Bruno Fernandes trying to press Virgil van Dijk at Anfield and we won 4-0?
Yes.
We're doing what Bruno Fernandes was doing, which is one man is leading what he thinks is a trigger for a press, and everyone else stood watching him, and it looks really poor on that one man. So I now have some sympathy for Bruno Fernandes trying to do that, rather than just ridiculing it. So what we're seeing at the moment with Liverpool is because our press isn't working, and if you've ever watched Liverpool's press from on high, the midfield and the front line move at the same time. So when you press the defender on the ball and he has to let it go, he's got no short pass and he goes long, the midfielders who will be contesting for the ball are smothered by originally Ronaldo, Henderson and Fabinho, and you take the ball off them just inside the opposition's half when you're on the front foot and you're attacking. We can't do that anymore. We're winning much more ball back now through the back four because teams are getting space to play through our midfield, through the lines, or runners off our midfield and through the lines. because we don't trust what's been going on in the midfield in terms of the athleticism, the pace, the power, and the energy, and it isn't working. We're hitting much longer, laser-guided long balls, if you like, transition balls, we'll call them, rather than long balls, into spaces for the likes of Salah, for Nunes, Diaz. Gakpo's quick, but we haven't really seen him stretch his legs yet. That will become a key factor of the remainder of the season for Liverpool, because the midfield isn't working particularly well. So for me, it's forced. It's not generally a tactic as such. I think we'd much rather have Thiago pulling the strings on a game of football, with two guys either side of him that can support him. But when it does break down, because Thiago tries expansive shots and there's expansive passes, and there's always an opportunity you give the ball away. But Liverpool this season are giving the ball away more than any other. So we're winning a lot more balls back via the back four, because we don't look at the midfield as being someone we can play through. We're bypassing them with transition balls left and right through the centre and trying to pick out the runners. And in Darwin Núñez, we've got such a quick forward. If he isolates any central defender in the Premier League one-on-one, he will beat them for pace. There isn't a central defender that can match him. And he's quicker running with the ball than they are without. It's ridiculous how fast he is. We're in danger of becoming a side that relies too heavily on that. This is why we need to sort out our midfield balance. I would be interested to see the stats that you just gave us, 62-42, up until the point when Darwin Núñez enters the fray on about 65, 70 minutes. Because we try it more when he's on the pitch, because he gives you that option, because he's going to pull out. He did pull out left an awful lot and try and isolate Thiago Silva, who played him very well when he did it, to be fair. There were two occasions in particular where he just didn't dive in. He just sat in his space and said to Núñez, you can't do anything with the ball while I'm here. And that's the experience and that's the IQ that Silva's got. But I think from 70 minutes, it was probably closer to being even Stevens in terms of 40 odd each. And then we went really, really direct when Núñez came on, because we wanted to use that pace. So in answer to your question, is it a deliberate ploy? It can be. Is it more frequent now than it ever was before? Yes, it is. Why is that? Because we're not relaxed, we're not comfortable, we're under pressure, and we're forcing games and we're forcing passes. And the final segment of that particular question would be, I don't think we are particularly confident when we give the midfield the ball in and around the centre circle. They can find a way to play through the lines. So we're much more direct than we've ever been. And it's as a result of the current form we're in and the pressure we're playing under.
Yeah, well, yeah. Let's get into Liverpool as a whole now. So for those of you that watched the game, it wouldn't go down as the best Liverpool versus Chelsea affair. We've had some very dramatic games in the past between the two clubs. I think for Chelsea, I think the bright light was the young man coming off the bench, the young Ukrainian winger they've signed. I think we say he's Muridic. If I might be wrong, but we'll get his name right in the future. But other than that, they had very little. I mean, they had a goal chalked off rightfully so for offside, so no problems there. But we'll go to Liverpool again, and we just want to let's try and jump into this season, because all banter aside, from me personally, I've been quite surprised at how the form has dropped on Liverpool. And I, from the outside looking in, was saying, maybe you need a new midfield, new midfield players, because it looked like not only would it be out of form, it's just playing a Klopp style of football for a number of years can really take it out of you after a while. And there needs to be fair rotation, and there needs to be players that you can bring in and rely upon. So, Milner can do that job every now and then, but obviously now that he's a bit older, it's not working the same way. So Fabinho is a lot more tired, especially when Van Dijk was injured last year or the year before. He had to go into centre back as well, so he was doing two different roles. But let's talk about your midfield first, because a lot of the things that I hear from some Liverpool fans is they're not as good at protecting defense as they used to, and because of that, the defenders are being a lot more exposed, which is leading to a lot more criticism of the defenders, because, if they're making mistakes, which happens in football, they're looked at as the main reasons why Liverpool are dropping form. Obviously, you spoke about the front line as well. Diaz, a great player that came in, was on fire, major injury. Mane's obviously gone. Firmino, I'm not sure what's happening with Firmino. You would know.
He's injured at the moment. He is injured at the moment.
Okay, so he's injured as well. Salah is Mo Salah for sure. Jota got an injury as well. That's another one. And Fabio Carvalho, Harvey Elliott, these are young boys. You can't expect them to hit the ground running all the time and just go crazy like a Mbappe or whoever else has gone off from 18 in the past. But let's talk about the midfield. Is the midfield transition period one of the biggest reasons why Liverpool's form and lack of backing maybe in the window as well, if that is the case, for midfielders anyway? Is that a major reason why Liverpool's form has deteriorated this season?
Yes, it is. First of all, address the investment issue. So lots of Liverpool fans will tell you they haven't backed the manager. So in the last 3 transfer windows, they've spent well over 100 million on Nunez, Diaz, and Gakpo. So I'd argue they have backed the manager. They never said they'd go head to head with Manchester City with a checkbook. They never said that's why they were coming to the club. We know full well that FSG have come to Liverpool as a financial and a business transaction. But there was a certain amount of housekeeping to do to get you there, and that included improving the team, bringing better players, and all of that good stuff. So they have backed the manager in terms of the money. The one that we question more than any other is we would rather have spent the £38 million on a midfielder than Cody Gakpo. No disrespect to Cody Gakpo, because I think in due course of time, he will prove to be a good signing for Liverpool because he's a good player. We needed a centre midfielder more than we needed a left winger to play through the centre and play in an awkward position. We needed a midfielder more than we did that. That being said, Kojo, one centre midfielder does not solve Liverpool's problems. You could go and spend £75 million tomorrow on Moises Caicedo, put him in the midfield at Liverpool, and the other two would let him down in terms of the physicality and the ability to run with people who are wanting to run at you. Brighton, for instance, in recent weeks, we played them and we got well beaten at Brighton. They would have been looking forward to getting at our midfield. If you can play Liverpool and identify and either isolate their centre midfielders one-on-one to a series of 50-50 challenges, you will likely beat Liverpool because the physicality isn't there anymore. Right. So yes, this should have started 3 transfer windows ago, this development of the midfield. What have we got at the moment? Jordan Henderson has played 470 times for Liverpool in a centre midfield that asks an awful lot of you in terms of physicality. We've run his blood to water. If you watch him play for an hour and he gets substituted, he looks uncomfortable walking off the pitch, never mind running round. We have a very, very labour-intensive midfield that's really taken it out of a player like that. Plus the fact, just shy of 2 years ago, absolutely horrendous injury, really bad. Literally, you could see the explosion in the leg when he was running with the ball. It was that bad. That's taken something out of him. It would take something out of anybody.
Yeah.
Fabinho has played 190 plus times for Liverpool in the same labour-intensive midfield. Only this year it's more labour-intensive because to be a good number 6, your 2 number 8s have to work for you, and that hasn't been happening. So he's been pushed all over the place, and he's out of form himself. And then you've got Thiago, who's played approaching 100 times for Liverpool since he signed for the club. That's more football on a season-by-season basis than Thiago's ever played in his life, because we know that Thiago didn't play full seasons for either Bayern Munich or Barcelona due to injuries and due to tactical changes. And Thiago isn't the centre midfielder you buy to play on the stretch, running back towards his own goal when you're under pressure. That's not getting the best out of Thiago. That's not allowing him to be all the things he needs to be. So in terms of our midfield, it's gassed. That's the honest appraisal of it. It's absolutely shot to ribbons. They can't physically keep up with these McAllisters, the Caicedos. Even against Manchester United, you were able to play through our midfield with consummate ease early on in the season, and it was hard to watch. That's been the cornerstone of Liverpool's success, is that rigid midfield, flat three that stops you playing, is aggressive, is a good ball winner. Ronaldo could play football, Fabinho could play football, Henderson could play football, but they just bullied you and they stopped you doing anything you wanted to do in the middle of your midfield. That's gone. That element is now gone. And now every single time we line up against somebody, people are saying, who's in their midfield 3 this week? We can get it them. I know this because I do Oppo previews for Red Men TV, and I talk to quite high-profile fans from other clubs, and they say, we just want to get it in your midfield, mate. We just want to have a go at your central midfield 3. We can see it. You can see it. The club can see it. But they don't do anything about it. The fact that the club is up for sale right now and we don't want to commit ourselves to massive amounts of money is holding us back. The fact that Chelsea are going offering 7.5-year deals to footballers under the term amortised finance, where they give £70 million for a player, and over 7 years they put it through their books at £10 million per year because they offset it against the contract. The rest of football needs to wake up, because that's how you circumnavigate FFP. And unless they do something to change that, we're going to see NBA and NFL style contracts given left, right, and centre to players to keep your expenditure down. Yeah. We could do that. We did it with Thiago to some degree. We bought Thiago over 4 years for £7.5 million a year. That's how we pay for Thiago.
Okay.
We need to start to think to do that. We've got issues in the back room where Julian Ward is leaving. Michael Edwards has already left. The head of analytics and research has tendered his resignation in January.
Wow.
There's some change. Julian Ward's job now is not the job that he was recruited to do, because Klopp and Linders are much more directly involved in the recruitment of players. That didn't happen before. Michael Edwards was key. So it's no surprise that the director of football, the guy that's pulling all the chains and all the levers to get players in, has decided actually this is very different and I want to move on. What the future holds for Liverpool in that regard, I don't know. That will be answered by whoever takes control of the football club and how they see a business model going forward. So the midfield right now is the biggest issue for Liverpool in terms of, does it support the front three in terms of the press? No, it doesn't. Can the front three press? No, because the midfield can't press. Yet we still operate with high back line, knowing that our centre midfield can't press. It makes no sense.
Is it?
Go on.
Sorry. Is it a case of bringing in more? I mean, because apart from obviously the young man, Bajatic, and I think Naby Keita, I don't know how old he's now, 27, 28 possibly. Is it an age thing? Is it? I mean, obviously you've mentioned the amount of games Henderson is. I didn't even know that. That's crazy amount of games to play. And considering he's been there, I think his longest tenure is under Klopp as a manager anyway, just from when he joined the club. Is it a case of getting more youthful midfielders in that can sustain that style of football with the press and the constant, maybe more like a box-to-box role, or is it maybe a thing where you sign a different type of midfielder to change the way the team plays?
If we get Jude Bellingham across the line,
right,
there's a big if. That changes the way we play. That changes our system. That changes our structure, because he's more dynamic and he's box to box. And we would want him to play in the mold of a Steven Gerrard, where he picks up the ball and he drives at you and he asks you questions, because he's technically good enough to do that, because he's quick enough to do that, because he's physical enough to do that, because he's got an all-round game, which would say, actually, we're not going to sign Jude Bellingham to sit him as a right centre midfielder in a flat three and just be a ball recycler. That would be totally against everything that guy can do. We said, as Liverpool fans, and I've said to you before, when we had that midfield three, and I know I keep harping back to it, but there's a reason for that, because that's when we were at our most effective. Jordan Henderson didn't need to be a world-class footballer. Jordan Henderson needs to be world-class at discipline, world-class at doing his job, world-class at recycling the ball. Same thing for Gini Wijnaldum, and the reality is they were world-class at what they did. Technically, as footballers, Jordan Henderson couldn't go and play for Barcelona, for instance, because he doesn't have the technical game that a Pedri or a Xavi has. He's not that type of player. Now he's tired, and he's 32, and he's played 470 games, and he's had injuries, and he's in his testimonial season at the football club. Football has evolved. Football has moved on. Other teams in and around the Premier League, we saw it on day one with Fulham, have brought energetic centre midfielders in that can play football. Yeah. Matheus Nunes, who plays for Wolves, and he came on in the FA Cup first game we had with them, was able to run off our midfield at will. 3 years ago, he'd got nowhere near our midfield. They would have just stopped him playing. So, yes, we need to sign a different type of footballer, because football has evolved. Systems need to evolve. Footballers have evolved. And we're now trying to do the same thing with players that just don't have the same energy in the tank as they had 3 years ago. 470 games doing what we asked Jordan Henderson to do is an awful lot. He's a tremendous leader. He's a tremendous communicator. He's a tremendous role model. He's a tremendous organiser. And he's arguably one of the best captains we've ever had. You wouldn't put him in a 100 metres race against other Premier League centre midfielders if that was decided to do for a bit of fun. And other teams are saying to us, right, we're going to go one-on-one against him. Caicedo, for instance, will pick up Jordan Henderson and say, do you know what? You're a smashing footballer in terms of all of the things that Steve just said, but I know I can push the ball past you and run you. And that is what's happening now. I mean, Manchester United did it to us. Arsenal did it to us. Fulham did it to us. I could sit here and go on. For goodness sake, Kojo, Nottingham Forest did it to us.
Yeah.
So the situation is that every now and then you have to look at it and you have to say, we've got to keep it fresh. We've got to keep it fresh. There aren't two midfielders in world football that could have solved Liverpool's problem. Tuchemini, who was rumoured to be quite close before Real Madrid came in, Jude Bellingham being the other. It should never have been a two-player window where if you can't get either of them, you don't get anybody. That should never have been the case. So we are struggling at the moment. Curtis Jones, for me, is a squad player. You know, he's a nice footballer in certain games, but he's a squad player. Naby Keita is a squad player. Doesn't give us what we need. Thiago is a wonderful footballer when things are going well for you, but not running back towards your own goal every 30 seconds. That's not how you get the best of him. Fabinho's legs are gone. I don't know if he ever recovers that form. Jordan Henderson's been magnificent, but he's 32 years old. He's 470 games into a Liverpool career, and he just hasn't got the same energy in the tank as he had before. And it's been remiss of the football club to say, actually, we can get by with these blokes, because we then swapped out Mane, which you quite rightly referenced, who was really key to our press.
Yep.
And we can't rely on Bobby Firmino every week, who was a trigger to our press.
Yep.
So we're asking Darwin Núñez to learn to press. Benfica didn't press.
No, he didn't.
Cody Gakpo to learn to press.
He didn't.
No. And we've got Luis Diaz, who does press. Luis Diaz is amazing. Luis Diaz does all the things you would want in a Liverpool. We all said it before he signed. If ever there's a Liverpool player out there that Liverpool should sign, Luis Diaz is that man because of the work ethic. Yeah. But since opening up the knee joint against Arsenal, going down heavily under challenge, and then the complication with that, we haven't been able to call on that. This is why I said to you earlier on in the stream, our front six is a problem. It's not just the midfield.
Yeah.
But that is a glaring issue, because you've probably questioned Virgil van Dijk this season in terms of his form. A, he's been carrying an injury. I am absolutely convinced of that. The club haven't said it, but I'm absolutely convinced of it. Okay. And B, he's got 4 or 5 people running at him. So his number 9 is pulling him right towards Andy Robertson, taking him to the number 9's right to create the space. Best example of that would be Dewsbury Hall's goal against Liverpool, where he broke the press. He broke an attempted challenge by Jordan Henderson. Matip went out to engage him, far too far up the pitch, was able to bypass Matip, and then whoever was playing up front for Leicester decided, right, I'm going to run Virgil van Dijk towards Andy Robertson. And then what you have is a massive chasm of space, and the guy's clean through and scores a goal. That's something we've seen over and over and over again in post-Gini Ronaldo Liverpool, because we cannot cover the spaces in midfield. We cannot stop the runners. We cannot stop third man running. So the midfield for me is dead. It's dead on its legs in there. I've got so much admiration for them because they've won so many trophies and done so much. Every now and then you have to look at the midfield and say they need some help. They need a body in there that's athletic. Sangakkar, for instance, would have been a really good or Sankari, however you say it, would have been a really good option as a 6. At this moment in time, we're rotating between Bajcetic, Henderson, and Fabinho, and 2 of those guys have got no energy to run.
Okay, then let's address the front 6 as well, because one thing that I've noticed about Liverpool this year is the chances. Now, when you talk about chances in Liverpool, the first name of everybody's lips is Darwin Núñez, because he is the high-profile signing.
Yep.
The amount of money he was signed for. So when he misses chances, they're brought to the table a lot more than other players. But reality is, strikers miss chances. That's just football, because he's got a good amount of goals as well. And if we're being fair to him, it wouldn't be highlighted so much if it wasn't for Haaland, because he's scoring a ridiculous number of goals.
Yeah.
But the return that Darwin Núñez has given Liverpool is actually pretty good. And considering how much of a troublemaker he is for defenses, he's actually having a good season, in my opinion. But chances are missed, not only by him in that front line. I want to compile it also with the defense, and I want to bring up the question of mentality, because I remember Jurgen Klopp, again, loved these players, and he called them mentality monsters, because there was a time period in your era of Klopp's success at the club where it seemed like even in games where you'd go down, you just couldn't lose. There was no way Liverpool would lose, and they'd also find a way to win. It wouldn't be come back to draw; it would come back to win. But in recent time, especially this season, when Liverpool go behind, they find it difficult in games, and they're losing a lot more than they're drawing. So the question of mentality. You've spoken about the midfield. Has there been a change in the forward line? I mean, new players, of course, but in general, just the forward line and the back line. Because apart from Ibrahima Konate, and I guess Tsimikas would be the two newest additions to that back line, has something changed, in your opinion, looking at how they play, looking at the attitudes after they go down? Has there been a change in mentality within the players? Has it been a club thing? About board members coming and going, so that comes with mentality of the club as well. It's just is there just a mentality changing at the club that just needs time to build back up, or is it just a case of bad luck?
There's a number of things. We go to a Champions League final, we lose to Madrid, we reinvent ourselves and we win it the following year. And in the same year that we win it, we lose the league by a point, scoring 97 points. Absolutely insane that you lose the league at 97 points, but we did. We dealt with that. We used the adversity to our advantage. We came back and used the high line to our massive benefit in terms of allowing VAR to help us with questionable decisions by playing a really high back line, and we win the league. Following season, we have an unbelievable amount of injuries, yet we still managed 28 out of the last 30 points, playing Reece Williams and Nat Phillips at centre-back, and we finished third, 5 points behind Manchester United, and it was tagged as the worst defence of a title-winning team ever, which is absolutely ludicrous. The following season, we go close again, and we also go challenge for a quadruple. We are 180 minutes away from football immortality. In reality, we're probably 15 minutes away from football immortality, because I think if Manchester City don't overturn the 2-goal deficit against Villa and we win the league, there's enough euphoria, there's enough emphasis, there's enough momentum to go to Paris and get a result against Real Madrid.
Okay.
We don't get that, and we end up with a domestic cup double, which is nothing to be sniffed at by any stretch. It's a great achievement.
Yeah, exactly.
But it isn't what we wanted, and it isn't what we set our hearts on, it isn't what we closed in on, and different players handle that disappointment differently. There are only so many times you can try Herculean achievements that take it out of you physically before mentally and psychologically you just can't do it anymore. Yeah. And I think that is an issue with some of the members of the squad, and I think that's why some of the players are fatigued. And I don't know if they'll ever get it back again. The front three, you take Mane out, who pressed the life out of everybody, was aggressive, physical, great footballer, but was the third time he'd asked to leave the football club for a new challenge, so you can't keep somebody that feels that way. We have to let him go. Bobby Firmino is picking up injuries as he comes to sort of the early 30s, and we can't rely on him season in, season out, game in, week out. We spoke about Gakpo, we spoke about Nunes, we haven't spoken about Jota, but Jota still had to learn how to press in the Liverpool way. Yeah. The dynamic has changed. Every now and then, as a manager, you need to stumble across something that's slightly fortuitous. Let's look at Alex Ferguson, class of 92. Will never be seen again, was never seen before. He stumbled across a blend of young men who complemented each other with his tactical awareness and the ability to add players to it at the right time. Manchester United went on a run of success, which is absolutely ridiculous, let's be honest. We had the luck in the sense that we had the front six, the midfield three and the front three complemented each other in terms of getting the press right. Every single game, they were amazing at pressing.
Yeah.
We've changed 4 of those players because we can't very often call on Fabinho and Henderson to play together anymore. And we've replaced them with players of a different nature. They're not like for like. Bobby Firmino is a one-off. There's not another player in world football that does what Bobby Firmino does. You could argue João Felix potentially could play that role because he's intelligent enough to do that and he's creative enough to do that. But Bobby Firmino is a one-off. What he does for Liverpool, nobody else does for anybody. In terms of the press, in terms of the creativity, in terms of the selflessness to create opportunities for other people. He is a Liverpool legend, and when his time is over, he'll be rightly celebrated as that, and I will have no problem with that. But he's not the player he was 2-3 years ago. We're trying to do the same thing with different players, which is why I said to you 15, 20 minutes ago, you can't ask this squad to play the way that the title-winning team played, because they're different bodies in the same positions who offer you different things. So we will have to change, which is why I'm an advocate of 4-2-4. But to play 4-2-4, your two in the middle have to be absolutely exceptional at covering space, at winning balls back, at being disciplined, at being physical, at being able to cover short distances very, very quickly to shut out danger. Our midfield can't do it. They're still brilliant footballers. Absolutely. What we're asking them to do in terms of our system, our formation, and what we don't get from the front three anymore is too big a stretch for the midfield. They just physically can't do it. So that has a knock-on effect on the back three, on the back four, in terms of now we've got midfielders running at our back four that we've never seen before. But hang on a minute, what's this? This is new. Yeah. How has Dewsbury Hall got a free run at Matip? Why is Matip going out pressurising the ball 35 yards out? All you've got to do is drop a shoulder and go past him. He's 6'4", 6'5". Takes him a time to turn and recover. Can't do it. I would much rather, when that situation arose, the centre-backs came closer together. The full-backs saw it as an opportunity to come inside and make a really tight back four and say to the likes of Dewsbury Hall, go on then, try and beat us now, instead of trying to engage him and win the ball back high. So as a result, all back to the front six, as a result of the front six being able to do the press from the front three, the press from the middle three, or the containment from the middle three, it's like the Alamo. Our defence have got players running at them from every conceivable angle that there is.
Yeah. Well, okay. Then what we'll do is wrap up finally on Jurgen Klopp, because, I mean, in football, unfortunately, all the buck goes to the manager. Mm-hmm. Even if players are not playing well, everybody goes straight to the manager straight away. Because in football, it just costs a lot more to sack footballers than it is to sack managers. So managers have to go first. But Klopp sacking, I've heard that 1 or 2 times. That's nonsense. The guy's been brilliant for Liverpool. There's no need to change that right now. However, I will say this. For me personally, and then you'll give your side, of course. He needs to adopt a plan B. I'm not saying a plan B in terms of, signing a different type of striker. How like England used to think Peter Crouch would be the plan B in the World Cup, despite having Jan Collars and other tall strikers in the past. I'm talking about what you're talking about, a different approach. Because if you do sign Jude Bellingham, he's not going to do the same job that Wijnaldum did, or vice versa. But this season, just for this season alone, because we're not going to sign Bellingham this January, maybe in the summer, possibly. What do you need from him from now to the end of the season? Is it now time to look at the players that he has and say, okay, what I'm doing is not working, he has to just change things quickly? Or do you think he still persists because the formula he's had, it has worked? I mean, overall, but sometimes there is time for a change.
Yeah, I'd like to see him make changes. I'd like to see him recognise that we need to be more difficult to beat. How do we do that? Well, we drop the back line back 20 yards. We take a more traditional sort of edge of the box defensive position, and we play on the counter attack because we've got the bodies to do that. Once Luis Diaz is back, Luis Diaz on the left, Darwin Núñez through the centre, Mo Salah on the right. Show me a quicker front three in world football. You won't be able to. So you'll be able to invite teams onto you. In the likes of Van Dijk when he comes back from injury, in the likes of Trent, in the likes of Robbo, you've got guys who can hit diagonal balls into corners, transition balls all day long, do it with aplomb, with skill, with expertise. We very often use Virgil van Dijk's outball to Salah when teams are trying to press us. It might need to become a factor of our game more and more. What Jurgen Klopp did when he joined the club was have a look at his midfield in particular, have a look at his squad and say, right, what can I do with these guys? I can create a hybrid system that isn't exactly what I want, It gives me some of what I'm looking for, and it gives me a little bit of dynamic attacking play. We may need to look at doing that again. If we continue to persist with 4-3-3 in the way that we have been, with the bodies that we're using, then the second half of the season will be as long as the first half of the season. What's the bigger problem? All successful managers are stubborn. We know this. Ferguson was stubborn. Wenger was stubborn. Guardiola's stubborn. How many times has all of those so-called football pundits and all of YouTube and all of Twitter gone and said, stop making changes in Champions League finals and you'll win one? Yet he goes and does something completely off the cuff that doesn't help and they lose the game. And I'm referencing not playing the CDM against Chelsea in particular.
Yeah.
Stop being stubborn, because that's a bigger problem than putting your hands up and saying, actually, this isn't working, guys. I need to change this. It's a bigger admittance of failure to carry on trying. What do they say? The first sign of insanity is to keep doing the same things, trying to get a different result.
Yes.
Yeah. Change it. Do something different. Go for a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2 where you put your wing backs on the edge of your midfield and you play 3 centre backs. When you haven't got the ball, you call the wing backs back and you suddenly become like a 5. But we're too easy to play against. We're too easy to score against. We're too easy to counter attack against. We're too easy for people to run off our midfield. But it isn't all bad, because in the front three, if used correctly and given the time and the space to run into, I said before, Darwin Núñez will beat any centre back to a ball over 30, 40 yards. It's not a contest.
He's rapid. He's so quick.
Luis Diaz will beat 90% of your centre backs to the ball. Mo Salah is the slowest of the 3, but you still say Mo Salah's a really quick player.
Yeah.
So forsake this. We want to play 4-3-3 because it's the Liverpool way and it's what we've done and it's brought us success. Yes, it brings you success when you've got the right players with the right attributes to play in that formation. Not right now. We can't do it. Got to protect the midfield. So if you protect the midfield by dropping them in deeper, playing with the counter-attacking football, you have to drop the back 4, because you can't play with 2 holding midfielders and the 4 defence within 15 yards of each other, because that diagonal ball in behind for third man running is still on. Napoli away, and it was a drubbing. Should have been alarm bells that it was too easy for Osimhen and other players to get in around the back of us simply by giving a wall pass and then get the third man running. Just too easy. Give and go, and by then your man's off and running. And all you've got to do is play the ball into an area. It's kind of like when teams figured out Barcelona, when they had Puyol and Piqué playing, and all you needed to do was sit in front of their back 4 and pop balls into the channels, because both of them were slow. And both of them were not able to get there, and they were leaving massive postcode sized gaps between them. Liverpool need to change the way they approach the game. They need to play deeper. They need to play on a counter attack, and they need to protect that midfield. We've got to stop asking Thiago to play as a guy running back towards his own goal, picking the ball up on the edge of the box and trying ridiculous passes to release people that are being intercepted, and straight away we're under pressure. And that would be Wolves' first goal, where he started the pressure by where Alisson passed it to Guedes and he scored. That comes from Thiago trying to drop a shoulder and sidestep someone 10 yards in front of his box. So all of the evidence is there to say make that change. All of the evidence is there to say drop off, use your biggest asset. Now, our biggest asset would be quick transition and pace.
Fair. All right. Well, I'm hoping he does. I mean, for your sake, because I like you. I don't like the club. I like you. So, so I'm hoping. No, because I mean, look, all due respect. I mean, Man United and Liverpool, we're not friends by any chance, but there's a massive respect between each other because we're the 2 biggest and historic clubs in the land by far, in my opinion, by far. And no, I respect Klopp as a manager as well. So just here to hope that he does turn it around, because a better Liverpool is better for the Premier League as well. So yeah, but Steve, thank you so much for that. I know it's not easy to talk about your club, as you said at the beginning, but hopefully when I bring you on next time, you have a lot more of a cheerier approach, because I know it's not easy. Both our clubs have been through it. It happens in football.
Yes, it does.
you're the one that told me football happens in cycles. The day you told me that, I realized, I just got to take my time and actually breathe. Because now, after 19 years of not competing properly for a Premier League title, Arsenal are right at the top, leading the pack right now, and, they have to wait their turn. Sometimes things happen.
How many times did I say to Cahill, you have to persist with Mikel Arteta?
You did. And the funny thing about that now is everyone that comes to the podcast keeps beating him up about it because he has to apologize. No, I mean, it's football, but I get it. As a passionate Arsenal fan as well, for him, when it wasn't going well for Arteta, he wasn't confident that he'd turn it around, but he's turned it around in a big way and he's doing a great job. But yeah, so for everyone that's listening, thank you so much for listening. This will also be out on the audios and all the videos as well for your YouTubes and your Spotify's and so on and so forth. But Steve, before we go, of course, please let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, get me on my socials at Steve Plunk. For Liverpool fans or anyone that wants to hear a little bit more about Liverpool, I'm also employed by Redmen TV, the Redmen TV, which is outside of LFC TV, the biggest Liverpool fan channel there is. You can come and see all the stuff we do there. Some of it's behind a paywall, some of it's free, but by all means, come and check it out. As I say, if you're a Liverpool fan and you're looking for some podcast material, there's plenty of stuff for you there. But as ever, Kojo, an absolute pleasure to come on your channel. I always try to make myself available for you guys because like you said before, I like you, so it's quite easy to do. And if, guys, you stumbled across 3inMidfield for the first time when you're going through football podcasts, trying to find some drive-to-work material, get these guys subscribed to because they're top blokes. They know their football. I don't go on anybody's channel. I genuinely enjoy spending some time talking football with these chaps. So get them subscribed to. It'll be the best thing you do from a football point of view for some time. Good fellas with good content.
Appreciate the kind words, man. Thank you so much. And you still follow as well because you ain't going to find any Twitter football nonsense on this channel, only good stuff. And Redmen as well. I checked out Redmen as well, and I'm actually a big fan of Redmen. I'm not gonna lie. I like the show, so and the channel in general. So I'm watching content. It takes a lot for me to watch Liverpool content. So you guys are pretty good. But yeah, it's Kojo 3inMidfield podcast. Yeah, have a good night.